You've talked about Kubernetes enabling multi-cloud. Was multi-cloud possible before Kubernetes and Cloud Native came along? Because obviously we heard early days of cloud adoption that you'd be able to create these hybrid-like solutions, because you mentioned they're on-premise into public cloud, and but you've also talked there about almost abstracting that with something like OpenShift. Pre Kubernetes, pre Cloud Native, did you see multi-cloud and hybrid environments, or is that a product of the adoption of containerization in Kubernetes?
It has definitely grown because of containerization. Obviously, that's driven a lot of strategy for customers to adopt it. But even prior to organizations adopting Kubernetes as a strategy, there has been other containerization strategies, right? So the idea of setting up granular services, developing, moving away from the SOA style architecture to microservices based architecture. Those things have been around for a while, even before the genesis of Kubernetes. The Kubernetes obviously has made all of this super simple for organizations to adopt it. But from an organization's perspective, the journey to multi-cloud, the idea of hybrid cloud has been there for a long time. Organizations have always looked at it in the context of, we are operating massive servers. What is the best way for us to scale? Well, let's go virtual. Let's virtualize many of these things. So there's been a journey that has led to this, but all of those have happened at different phases of the organization's journey to be a cloud-first company. Many organizations have looked at their workloads and looked at it in a way where we say, we don't want to manage physical servers because it's just cost prohibitive. Let's go virtual. That's been a strategy. I mean, in some ways, you could look at it as a hybrid model, their own, locked-in cloud environment, even though we didn't call it cloud because it was on-premise, obviously running in a virtualized environments. Over a period of time, people took those same virtual environments and said, why even have a virtual environment in our environment? Might as well run, virtual environments that are cloud provided, because they provide the ability to be elastic. They provide the ability to deploy, manage, run workloads in a way where we can scale easily. I mean, I'm talking non-Kubernetes. Obviously, we've seen all of these where organizations have adopted this strategy. So the point is, every customer maps out their journey, and the journey has been different for each customer. And some have gone all in day one into a cloud-first strategy, adopting a public cloud strategy. Some have made this journey over a period of time, going from physical servers to virtualization to a cloud provider to multi-cloud providers. But most importantly, I think the adoption or the usability of Kubernetes has made it much more rapid in the last few years, this adoption that we're talking about.
And you mentioned private cloud. That means, I guess, cloud that's sitting within your data center. Would that be traditionally on-premise environment? So you're saying there that almost you could think of your data center with the right types of technologies almost being like one of your cloud environments. Is that the way you think about it? Is that the way you think about it?
So when we say private cloud, and I could pretty much say that, I have 3 machines running in my data center. It's network locked. It's my private cloud. I mean, I could say that, but it's more about how you operate. Have you adopted the cloud principles? Have you adopted the idea of how you operate, within the context of the principles defined as cloud native? Because, we all know that you can't go and say, I want to buy cloud native. There is no such thing as buying cloud native or something like that. There is no such thing as I want to buy private cloud. You essentially build this with the principles of a cloud first model. And that's essentially makes it your private cloud or your environment within the organization that is adopting a cloud native strategy. And I've used the word cloud native a few times, and I think I should expand on that as well a little bit, because going cloud doesn't mean you've adopted cloud native strategy, right? Cloud native is a set of principles that you adopt to say, this is how we want to operate. We want to provide the ability to, deploy, manage, continuously integrate, continuously develop, continuously deploy, being able to be agile, being able to make sure that, all of our strategy is in place to deploy and manage our workloads that our customers will access at any given point of time, because our consumers will access our services from a browser, from a phone, from a device, from edge compute, whatever that might be. in order to be able to scale, you need to adopt certain principles. Where you apply that principles, whether you apply it in your data center and make it your own private cloud, or you adopt that principles and deploy workloads in a public cloud, essentially defines which strategy you picked up. But for purposes of many organizations, they probably use all of them. So which means they are truly hybrid in nature in terms of where they operate their workloads.
So you're saying that cloud native is a set of principles that govern how you deploy your services. And I'm assuming that cloud native is underpinned by technology like Kubernetes and containers.
That is exactly what has happened in the past, 3-4 years. When people say cloud native, one of the primary drivers that is driving adoption of cloud native technologies and making those principles of cloud native much more viable, much more seamless to adopt, much more agile. All of that is done via Kubernetes, because Kubernetes provides this platform. You can almost imagine Kubernetes being that operating system for cloud native technologies, right? So, because if you want to adopt any cloud native technologies, the simplest way to think about it is, I need something to run. I don't want to worry about how it scales. I don't want to worry about its availability. I don't want to worry about its security. I don't want to worry about, any of the operating models that go into operating these technologies. What can I do to sort of, run them in a way where all of these come for free? And that's essentially what Kubernetes has provided for everybody. The platform where they can think of just focusing on what is valuable for their customers, not having to worry about the infrastructure and the platform that goes into providing those capabilities. Just focus on developers building applications. Do not worry about the platform on which it runs on. That's what Kubernetes has made simple.
Now, Kubernetes enables you to almost abstract away the complexity of your infrastructure, so that it almost enables you to focus on the real value, which is the code and the product. Like you're freeing up developers. Otherwise, in the past, trying to think about, I need this physical server here, and I need this operating system, and I need this virtualization technology. And just about this time, I've got it set up. It's been a success, and then the whole thing falls over because it's under too much demand. Is that kind of what you're saying?
You're absolutely right, and I think that's essentially what has been simplified, which is why many of the cloud providers, as you know, have these managed Kubernetes offerings. And the idea of a managed Kubernetes offerings is provided by all of these cloud providers, is to facilitate that aspect of, you get a service where you have a platform called Kubernetes. We will call it what we want to call it, but you get a platform in which you deploy those applications. We will worry about the infrastructure that goes into it. We'll worry about how you scale, manage all of those things. What you get is the ability to just focus on application development and deploy it on your environments. Going back to that hybrid comment that you made and the private cloud, many of these cloud providers also provide you to extend this infrastructure that they are providing as managed Kubernetes offering on-premise as well, because that is also to help manage the risk, as we talked about, because many organizations want to run and operate. And I mentioned OpenShift specifically because that was the only choice that was available before. For a long time for many organizations. Obviously, people that had adopted a cloud native strategy with the likes of Pivotal or any of those things, their natural transformation or a migration strategy was to go from there to OpenShift. And the cloud providers are essentially providing more choices. We hear very often, people talking about Anthos, or people talking about EKS Anywhere, or Azure Arc. All of these are essentially platforms that enable organizations to extend what they have as a public cloud provider capabilities into their data center, so that way they are also operating with the same paradigm of the particular cloud provider.
That sounds incredibly powerful.